So this is my four-wheel drive 2-litre turbo Vauxhall Nova. And in today's video, I want to get it running. So it's basically running a Calibra turbo engine and a Calibra four-wheel drive system. And it hasn't run for a couple of years, and it hasn't run since I've done the four-wheel drive conversion, which I'd like to add isn't finished yet, hence why nothing's painted. Now, the last time it did run, we did have a bit of an issue. So when it was getting really hot, it was starting to go off a cylinder. And I also noticed it was running lean on full boost, which it's never done before. So I pulled out the original injectors and I've had them tested at Salt and Pepper Racing, done by Ian Pepper. And as you can see from these figures here, they're not good. This one, very low, 270cc. It should be around 320, 330 from memory. So he's had these apart, cleaned them, replaced the filters, and this is what we've got: 324, 324, 324, and 320. So they are basically bang on brand new injectors again. So the original plan was to fit these red Saab injectors. Now these are genuine Bosch injectors, and as always, I've had them tested by Ian. And as you can see, they've come back good. What I have noticed though, these are meant to be 360cc injectors, and they're not. They're 236. That's what they come back as after a clean. The yellow injectors, which shouldn't flow as much, are around 320cc. So the yellow ones are actually going to spray more fuel than these. This is a common mod, so I'm very confused why that's happened. I don't know whether it's a bit of an error from Ian, but I can't see how he could have written them all down incorrectly. So yeah, because of that, I'm going to put the yellows back in, not the reds. So in a future video, we will be fitting a much bigger turbo on this, and we're going to be restoring the car. But for now, all I want to do is test the four-wheel drive system, make sure everything works, because it's had a lot of mods to get it this far. And then if it's all good, we'll strip it down to a bare shell. I'm going to do a bare shell restoration, including air conditioning and lots of mods you guys have probably never seen before. So if you're interested in that, hit that subscribe button, then you won't miss another update. Right, let's get the injectors fitted and crack on with this build. So I always find things go in a lot easier with lube. So I use some clear silicone lube on the brand new O-rings of these injectors, so they slide into the inlet manifold and into the fuel rail really nicely and really easily. I put them all in, push the rail down, bolt the rail on, and then fasten on the loom to the top of the injectors, fit the throttle cable bracket and the throttle cable, and finally I attach all the ECU earths. Once that's done, I put the breathers back on the rocker cover, and that is the injectors installed properly. So back in the day, when this was just a two-wheel drive version of what it is today, when it used to look nice, this made 300 horsepower on the dyno. Now it has quite a few little mods to get it up to that kind of power. One of them mods, a supporting mod, is this fuel pressure regulator. So as you can probably see, this isn't standard. So what I've done, I've taken the original fuel pressure regulator off, which is this one here. This is 3 bar, but non-adjustable. And because this is running EDS phase 2 chips, it recommends upping the fuel pressure to 3.5 bar. So the easy way to do that, in my opinion, is to fit one of these, and then that allows you to put your own custom fuel pressure regulator in. Now I did have an adjustable one, but I found it went out of tune a lot, so I fitted this. Now this is a modified Vectra V6 fuel pressure regulator, so I've cut the rail down and I've made it fit this. Yeah, and the beauty of that is I can take this regulator out and I can fit loads of aftermarket ones which are readily available, or I could go to the scrapyard and get loads out of Audis, or lots of German cars have these Bosch fittings. So they literally undo that clip, it pulls out, you get them in loads of different sizes. So that at the minute is a 3.5 bar one. I've also fitted a 3.8 bar one in the past, so I can kind of tune the fuel in for the setup and make it run the best I can. So with the phase 2 chips, this here, 21 psi coming out of the turbo and a naturally aspirated inlet cam, which gives another 1mm lift. It made 300 horsepower, which, as you can imagine, I was absolutely thrilled with. So next job, I need to fit the brake servo line. Now, if I don't fit this, there's going to be a massive vacuum leak and it's not going to run properly. So this is a modified item. So it's basically, I've used a standard valve. This is one-way valve. Used the standard Nova coupling on the end, which screws into the inlet manifold. And then the standard fitting, which goes inside the servo. I've used reinforced silicone hose connected to, and it works perfectly. So we'll push that in there. and then fit that there. Another little job which isn't really essential for it to run, but I want to do is I need to put some oil in this gearbox. Now I've just fitted all this. This is an F17 setup which I've converted to fit the Nova, and that's an F20 gearbox, four-wheel drive box as well. So best way to fill these is to take the breather out the top of the gearbox, which is that bit there, and then just pour the oil straight in. So that's what we're going to do. Now I absolutely cocked this up and I didn't even see it happening. So basically, when I fitted the transfer box a few weeks ago, I didn't put all the bolts in what secures it to the gearbox. Now I didn't do this because I knew it was coming back out and it was a bit awkward to get to. So I left one out, but what I didn't realise is that made a hole inside of the gearbox essentially. So when I filled it up, half the oil came out on the floor. I didn't even realise at the time of filming. Anyway, I've now rectified that and it's okay. The next job, again, not essential, but we're going to do it anyway, coolant pipes. So if you've watched my previous videos, you'll know how all these coolant pipes work and where they go. But basically, even though it's the wrong engine in the car, they pretty much all go to the standard position. Now these are Roos upgraded silicone hoses. They're much better quality than the original rubber, and they're about 10 years old now. They're lasting very well, so yeah, I'm pleased with them. Another obvious one, this is obviously going to cause it a big air leak, is the intake hose for the turbo. So this goes from an intercooler to the top hat, which is the upper part of the inlet manifold. So we need to get this on. Now, if you've ever worked on a C20, let know that you'll know things are quite tight up front, and this is no exception. So this boost pipe is incredibly tight to the front engine mount, but we do get it on with a bit of a wiggle. I dread to think how bad it's going to be when a new turbo is fitted, but like anything, I'll get around it. So next job, spark. It's not going to run without a spark, so let's put the Dizzy on. So there is an oil feed to this, so it does fill up with oil. There should be an O-ring on the end. This does have an O-ring, but it's quite square. I will put a new one on, but for now, I'm just going to use a bit of sealant, which is a bit rough, but I'm only testing the car. I then put the leads on in the correct order. Now, again, this is fairly obvious because they're all different lengths. Obviously, longest goes to the furthest away, and vice versa. Connect the coil, and that's the spark side of things all sorted. And finally, I strap up all the lube and all the hoses because I hate things what can chafe. Really annoys me. Coolant tank. This is the standard Nova item. It's got one acne screw holding it on, and it's got a little tab that clips into the chassis leg. A couple of hoses on that. Tighten them up. I put the screen wash tank and pump back in, and that's that side of things pretty much sorted. Right, so next job, to get it running, we need to do the fuel lines. Now, it's about a week later because I've been waiting for some parts to come, and this is what we've got. Right, so we've got a high flow fuel pump. Now, this should be capable of around 400 litres per hour, which is more than enough. We've also got a fancy billet aluminium fuel filter, got some fuel hose, some clips, and this fuel tank. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this long term. It's very nicely made. Really like it. There's nothing wrong with it. However, I wasn't sure if I really wanted one in the boot. I originally wanted a fuel tank underneath, but there's not a lot of space. So I bought this just so I could test the car, and we'll see. But yeah, first impressions, very well made, and it looks pretty cool, and it should fit there really well. So let's get this plumbed up. As you can see, that's where the original fuel tank would sit, but I've got a four-wheel drive axle, custom rear cross member, and lots of other bits in the way. So yes, there is a little bit of room, but I still need an exhaust silencer somewhere. So I think we're going to stick with inside for now. Right, first off, we need to extend the fuel lines. Right, so I'm almost certainly going to replace these original fuel lines with some copper ones at some point, but I'll do that when I take the engine out because I can't get to the back of the bulkhead. So for now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to extend these. Right, so on these, your blue is your feed and your black is return. So I start by mounting the fuel pump and the fuel filter. Now all these items I've got from AliExpress and I am super impressed with the quality. Yes, some people say don't use Chinese parts, blah, 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 blah. However, yeah, I'm not going for the cheapest stuff. This is the higher end Chinese stuff. And I think they're going to be more than fine. So yeah, it's a rubber mounted pump. I bolt it to the floor and then I bolt the fuel filter to the cross member. I did use proper branded AM fittings and branded UK supplied fuel lines just because I didn't want any issues with fuel leaks. However, I'm sure the Chinese ones would have been fine, and they're probably made in the same place anyway. I routed all the pipes and then clipped them to the floor using some decent fuel hose fittings. As always, if you want links to any of these items, comment below. Right, so now the fuel lines are mounted underneath and I'm happy with them. Next job's the fuel tank. Now what I've done, I've just put it in the centre and I've kind of put it in a logical place. So I'm having to use razors. So these are 40mm razors because there is a sump in the bottom of this fuel tank. So it's got a low spot where the fuel will sit essentially. So if it's low on fuel, it'll always have a little bit in. So because of that, I'm using the spacers. So I've just quickly measured roughly where it wants to be, and that is bang on in the centre. I'm happy where it exits. So it's now time to start screwing it down. So I mark and drill and use riv nuts as a captive nut. Now, unfortunately, I thought I had some M8s in stock. I didn't, I only had M6. So I've bought some, but for now I've used M6 bolts, which to be fair, will probably be fine. But in future videos, I will change these for M8 just for a bit of extra security. Right, so the rear bolt hole needed to go bang on in the middle of this raised section here. So what I've done to make it work for me, I've used some spacers, some washers, a bolt and a nut, and I basically heated the panel up here, clamped them together to force that flat, which has given us a nice flat half circle. You can't really tell too much because I've just put a bit of paint on it, but it means this, instead of sitting on the edge like so and rocking, now sits nice and flat, which is what we wanted. So I'm dead chuffed for that. So there we go, that's all 4 mounts done. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. And I've also, these are factory holes for the Land Rover floor. I've drilled them out, put a grommet in so the fuel lines can go in here. So we're going to have 1 return and then 1 breather. Right, and also, just so you know as well, I'm going to make an aluminium plate that goes over this. The fuel feed is going to go through it and it's going to have riv nuts in it so it locks in. This is just a factory Land Rover hole, but it's actually worked out really well. So that'll be a later video. Right, let's put the fuel tank in. So I secured the tank down using some fittings. Now, talking of security, if you want to secure my future with YouTube and you want to support the channel, all you need to do, if you haven't already, is click subscribe. If you like the content, subscribe away, share with your friends, and who knows where we're going to end out. Once the tank's in, I put the AM fittings on, feed the pipes through, and I'm really happy with the overall look of that. So I'm super thrilled with the overall look of both the fuel tank and the boot floor. I think it looks really performance-y and everything's really nicely made, even if I do say so myself. And there we go. So that is the breather, which just tucks underneath the axle. And then the other side is the return, which goes to the front of the vehicle. So all I've got left to do now is put a feed pipe to the fuel pump from the fuel tank. So I've used a 10mm barbed fitting. This is an AN10. It's fairly big and should do the job perfectly. I've just made this hose up. Now it just needs fitting. So it's now on and I've gone round and checked all the fuel pipes are nice and tight. So all we've got to do now is extend the fuel pump wiring and connect it up. Fill the tank up with some fresh petrol, connect the battery, and it should start. Fingers crossed. So you've got to remember the entire fuel system is either new or completely dry, but didn't expect it to start straight away. However, good things come to those that wait. Hey, hey, hey! No rattles, no leaks, no problems. I am thrilled. I am absolutely over the moon. I've not heard this run for a couple of years. Still sounds mint. Absolutely thrilled. So we're going to wrap the video up there. In the next episode, this car is going to drive for the first time as a four-wheel drive converted Vauxhall Nova. So if that interests you, click the subscribe button and don't miss another update. Stay tuned for more. See you later. Goodbye.